Do not ask me about my wrist. Those were the first words I said to Ethan Blackwell that morning, and the second they left my mouth, I knew I had made a mistake. For nearly 3 years, I had been his executive secretary, which meant I knew how to anticipate almost everything before he asked. His coffee was black. His first meeting never started before 8:30. He hated unnecessary phone calls, tolerated exactly one brand of pen, and could silence a room without raising his voice. What I had never learned was how to lie to him convincingly. It was 7:12 on a Monday morning when I walked into his office carrying 2 folders and a paper cup of coffee. I had been awake since 4. My navy blouse was buttoned to the collar even though the building heat was running too high, and the sleeves reached almost to my knuckles. I had checked them 3 times in the elevator. Covered. Safe. Normal. That was the goal. Normal had become something I practiced. I set Ethan's coffee beside his laptop and opened the first folder. The Chicago call moved to 9:15. Legal wants 20 minutes before the board meeting, and your driver confirmed the airport pickup for Thursday. Ethan looked up from the document he was reading. At 41, he had the kind of face people remembered even when they wished they did not. Dark hair, gray eyes, strong jaw, broad shoulders beneath a charcoal suit. When he reached for the coffee, the cuff of his shirt shifted enough to reveal dark ink along his left wrist, part of the tattoo that disappeared beneath his sleeve. You are early, he said. So are you. I own the building. Convenient. Usually, that earned the faintest change in his expression. Not quite a smile. That morning, nothing. His eyes stayed on me. I turned toward the conference table before he could study me any longer. Then my hand caught the edge of the coffee cup. It tipped. I grabbed it too quickly. My sleeve slid back. Only 2 inches. That was enough. I froze. Ethan did too. Purple and yellow marks circled the inside of my wrist. Almost faded, but not enough. I pulled my sleeve down immediately. Grace. Do not. His voice changed. Quieter. Who did? That. I stacked the folders even though they were already straight. I said, do not ask me about my wrist. Silence. I could feel his attention like weight against my skin. Then tell me why you are shaking. I looked down. My fingers were trembling. I curled them into my palm. Too much coffee. You have not touched yours. Of course he noticed. Ethan Blackwell noticed things other people survived by overlooking. I am fine. That phrase usually means the opposite. And asking the same question twice does not make it yours to answer. His jaw tightened. For 1 second, I expected the man everyone feared. The man whose name traveled through certain restaurants and private rooms faster than introductions. Instead, he leaned back in his chair. All right. I blinked. All right. You told me not to ask. He picked up the folder, but his eyes remained on my face. I heard you. Relief came too quickly. It almost hurt. Thank you. I turned toward the door. My phone vibrated inside my pocket. Once. Then again. Every muscle in my body locked. Ethan saw that too. I hated him for noticing. I hated myself more for being so easy to read. I stepped into the hallway before checking the screen. Unknown number. 1 message. Wear long sleeves tomorrow. My breath stopped. I deleted it immediately, but the words stayed behind my eyes. When I looked through the glass wall of Ethan's office, he was no longer reading the folder. He was watching me. For the rest of that morning, I told myself Ethan had forgotten what he saw. He had 3 meetings before noon, a call with Chicago at 9:15, and a board review that usually left half the executive floor speaking in whispers afterward. Men like Ethan Blackwell did not have time to worry about one employee's private problems. I repeated that until I almost believed it. Then, at 6:45 that evening, I realized he had been watching the details instead. You are still here, he said from the doorway of my office. I looked up from my computer. So are you. I asked first. Technically, you did not ask anything. His eyes narrowed slightly. On another day, I might have enjoyed that. Go home, Grace. My fingers paused. Above the keyboard, I have 2 reports left. They can wait. You never say that. Tonight I am. I closed one document and opened another. I am fine. He did not respond. That silence lasted long enough to make me look up. Ethan was staring at the reflection in the window behind me. I followed his gaze. 40 floors below, traffic moved along Madison Avenue in red and white lines. Nothing unusual. What? I asked. How do you get home? Subway. Which station? My stomach tightened. Why? Because I realized I have seen you leave this building 3 different ways in the last 2 weeks. I forced a laugh. You track employee exits now. No. I remember patterns. Of course he did. I turned back to the screen. Sometimes I walk. Sometimes you use the service elevator. I said nothing. Sometimes you wait in the lobby for 20 minutes before leaving. Maybe I like the lobby. You hate the lobby music. I looked at him. You remember that? You complained about it for 6 months. It is terrible. It is. For 1 second, the tension loosened. Then my phone vibrated beside the keyboard. My hand moved before I could stop it, flipping the screen face down. Ethan saw. His expression changed. Not anger. Focus. You are my boss, I said. Not my rescuer. He leaned one shoulder against the doorframe. Good. I blinked. Good. I am not trying to rescue you. Then what are you doing? Trying to understand why my secretary has spent 3 years walking into this office like she owns every minute of her day, and suddenly you are checking windows before you leave. The words landed too close to the truth. People change habits. Not all at once. I stood and reached for my coat. I am going home. Ethan stepped aside immediately. No argument. No order. That should have relieved me. Instead, I felt strangely exposed. I took the private elevator down to the lobby, waited 7 minutes, then left through the side entrance on 53rd Street. Cold air hit my face. I looked left, then right. Nothing. I walked half a block before forcing myself to breathe normally. At the corner, I glanced back toward Blackwell Tower. Ethan stood behind the lobby glass, far enough away that he could pretend he was not watching. I kept walking. 2 blocks later, I saw the car. Dark blue sedan, parked beneath a street lamp. Same dent near the rear bumper. Same temporary parking permit hanging from the mirror. It had been outside my apartment on Thursday, near the grocery store Saturday, across from the office yesterday. My pulse began to climb. I did not stop. I crossed the avenue with a group of pedestrians and changed direction toward Grand Central. The sedan stayed where it was. That almost made it worse. My phone vibrated again. I waited until I reached a crowded coffee shop before looking. Another unknown number. You changed your route. I stared at the words until the screen dimmed. Then a second message appeared. Smart. My mouth went dry. I deleted both and looked through the window. Across the street, the dark blue sedan pulled away from the curb. I told myself I had lost it. I told myself I was safe. What I did not know was that Ethan had already seen the car too. The flowers arrived at 9:20 the next morning. White roses. 12 of them. Wrapped in gray paper with no card. Our receptionist carried them into my office with a smile and set them beside my keyboard. Someone is trying to impress you. My stomach dropped so fast I had to grip the edge of my desk. Who brought these? Courier. He left already. I looked at the bouquet. Ryan always sent white roses when he wanted to remind me that he could still reach me. Birthdays. Apologies. Days after I changed my number. They had stopped feeling like flowers a long time ago. Throw them away, I said. The receptionist blinked. All of them, please. She must have heard something in my voice because she did not argue. She lifted the bouquet, and a small metal tag slipped from beneath the paper and landed on the floor. I recognized it before I bent down. Brass. Oval. Scratched across one edge. Apartment 8C. My old building. The apartment Ryan and I had shared before I left. My fingers went cold. Grace. Ethan's voice came from the doorway. I straightened too quickly. He looked from my face to the tag in my hand, then to the flowers. What is that? Nothing. The receptionist quietly disappeared with the bouquet. Ethan entered but stopped on the other side of my desk. You are getting worse at that word. At what? Nothing. I closed my hand around the key tag. I have work to do. He glanced toward the hallway. Were the flowers expected? No. Did you want them? No. His expression sharpened. Who sent them? I looked at him. Do not. Grace. You said you were not trying to rescue me. I am not. Then stop turning every detail into an investigation. He went still. I could see the instinct in him, the part that wanted names, cameras, answers. Ethan had built an entire life around never being surprised. My fear was probably unbearable to someone like him because it refused to organize itself into something he could control. You had security review the car from last night, did you not? I asked. Silence. That was enough. Anger pushed through the fear. You had no right. A vehicle was sitting outside my building watching one of my employees. One of your employees. I laughed once. There it is. His jaw tightened. That is not what I meant. It is exactly what you meant. Everything becomes yours when it happens close enough to you. Someone is following you. And if you make that person feel cornered, I deal with what happens after. Ethan's face changed. Not softer. More careful. You think I would make it worse? I know you could. He said nothing. I opened my hand and stared at the brass tag. Apartment 8C. The place where I had once believed love meant explaining myself until the other person approved. This was mine, I said quietly. Ethan's eyes dropped to it. An apartment key? A key tag. From where I used to live. With who? The question slipped out before he could stop it. I looked up. He understood immediately. You said not to ask. Then do not. He nodded once. That simple restraint affected me more than another question would have. I placed the tag in the desk drawer and locked it. I need 5 minutes. Take 10. I almost smiled. Almost. Ethan turned toward the door. One thing. I waited. I will not contact anyone connected to this unless you ask me to. Relief loosened something in my chest. Then he added, but if someone enters this building, security handles it. That is not negotiable. I wanted to argue. I could not. Fine. He left. I sat there until my breathing slowed. At 11:43, my phone lit up. Unknown number. I did not open the message immediately. I already knew who it was. When I finally looked, there was only one sentence. You should have kept the flowers. I locked the screen. Across the office floor, Ethan was standing inside the conference room behind glass, speaking to 6 executives. He did not look toward me once. That should have made me feel less watched. Instead, for the first time, I wondered if being seen by the right person might be different from being watched by the wrong one. Ryan appeared across the street at 7:18 that evening. I saw him through the lobby glass before he saw me. Same dark coat. Same careful posture. Same habit of standing completely still when he wanted someone else to feel watched. My body recognized him before my mind did. My shoulders tightened. My breath shortened. Every sound in the lobby seemed suddenly too sharp. The elevator bell. The security desk phone. The revolving door turning once in the wind. Grace. Ethan's voice came from behind me. I did not turn. Do not go outside. He stepped beside me, following my line of sight. Ryan was standing beneath a street lamp half a block away. He looked ordinary. That was always part of the problem. Nothing about him announced danger to strangers. Is that him? Ethan asked. I hated how quickly the answer appeared on my face. Yes. His entire body went still. Name. Ryan Cole. Ethan looked toward the security desk. I caught his sleeve before he could move. No. His eyes dropped to my hand. I released him immediately. Grace. Do not send anyone out there. He is watching you from outside my building. I know. And you expect me to ignore that? I expect you to listen to me. The words came sharper than I intended. Ethan stared at me. Through the glass, Ryan had not moved. If you scare him, I said more quietly, I pay for it later. Something in Ethan's face changed. Explain. Not here. He looked at Ryan. Again, then at me. The old Ethan would have given an order. I could almost see the instinct forming behind his eyes. Instead, he said, where? Conference room downstairs. We walked away from the lobby windows without looking back. I did not realize how badly my hands were shaking until the conference room door closed behind us. Ethan stayed near the far end of the table, leaving distance between us. Tell me what you meant. I sat down because my knees suddenly felt unreliable. Ryan does not like being embarrassed. That is not unusual. For him, it becomes a lesson. Ethan's jaw tightened. I lifted one hand. No. You asked. Let me finish. He nodded. I stared at the polished tabletop. When I tried to leave the first time, he did not come after me at work. He called my younger sister instead. Asked innocent questions. Mentioned where she worked. What time she usually left. Nothing illegal. Nothing anyone could point to. Ethan's expression hardened. He wanted you to know he could reach her. Yes. Saying it aloud made the room feel colder. So you stayed. I looked away. For a while. And the bruises? I closed my eyes for 1 second. They are part of why I left for good. Ethan did not ask how they happened. I was grateful for that. How long ago? 6 weeks. And he has been contacting you since. Different numbers. Flowers. Cars. Messages that prove he knows where I am. Ethan looked toward the closed door as if he could see through 3 floors of concrete and glass. Why did you not tell anyone? Because people like you hear a problem and think power is the answer. His eyes came back to mine. People like me? Men who can make one phone call and change someone else's life. I swallowed. Ryan wants that reaction. If you threaten him, if you humiliate him, if you make him feel small, he will not blame you. He will blame me. Ethan was silent for a long time. Then he asked, "What do you want me to do?" The question stunned me. "What? You told me what not to do. Tell me what you need." I had prepared myself for resistance. "Not this. I need you not to confront him." "All right. No one follows me without telling me." His expression tightened, but he nodded. "All right. And if anything happens, we document it. We do not improvise." Ethan leaned both hands against the table. "You want evidence. I want my life back." The words came out quieter than I expected. He held my gaze. "Then, that is what we work toward." For the first time since the messages began, I felt something inside me loosen. Not safety exactly. Maybe the possibility of it. Ethan's phone vibrated. He checked the screen, then looked at me. "Security says the man outside just left." I exhaled slowly. Good. Ethan did not look relieved. He did not leave alone. My stomach tightened again. What does that mean? Ethan turned the phone toward me. A still image from the lobby camera showed Ryan getting into the passenger side of a gray SUV. I recognized the driver immediately. Blackwell Group employee badge. Mid-level operations manager. Someone I had passed in the elevator dozens of times. Ethan's voice dropped. "Grace, whoever is helping Ryan is already inside my company." The employee in the security image was named Marcus Reed, and I knew exactly why he hated me. 8 months earlier, I had reported discrepancies in a vendor schedule he managed. Nothing dramatic. Missing approvals. Repeated changes made after hours. Numbers that did not match the contracts on file. I had followed procedure, sent everything to compliance, and moved on. Marcus had not. He blamed me for the audit, I said. Ethan stood beside the conference table, studying the still image on his phone. Was he disciplined? Demoted? And you never mentioned this? Because employees get angry when consequences find them. That does not mean every angry person becomes part of your private security problem. Ethan looked at me. He just drove away with Ryan. I hated that he was right. I know. The words came out smaller than I wanted. Ethan set the phone on the table. "Tell me everything about Ryan." I stiffened. "You said you would follow my rules." "I am." "That does not sound like it." "Grace, I am not asking because I want permission to punish him." His voice stayed calm. "I am asking because someone inside my company is feeding him information, and I need to know what information matters." That distinction stopped me. I sat down again. Ethan stayed, standing several feet away. He did not move closer. "Ryan and I were together for almost 2 years, I said. At first, he was attentive. Too attentive, but I did not see it that way then. He remembered where I went, who I worked with, what time I got home." Ethan's jaw tightened. Later, he started calling those things concern. I looked at my hands. If I went somewhere without telling him, he wanted an explanation. If I changed plans, he wanted to know why. If I did not answer quickly enough, he would contact someone else. "Your sister?" "Sometimes." I swallowed. "Sometimes friends." "Once, the front desk at my building." Ethan said nothing. I continued because stopping would make starting again harder. I kept thinking if I explained myself clearly enough, he would understand. Then I realized understanding was never the point. Knowing where I was made him feel in control. My sleeve had slipped slightly while I spoke. I noticed Ethan's eyes move toward my wrist, then immediately back to my face. He did not ask. I appreciated that more than I could say. "I left 6 weeks ago," I continued. "I changed my number twice. Stayed with my sister for a few nights, then stopped because Ryan sent her a message mentioning the coffee shop across from her apartment." Ethan's expression became very still. "Did he threaten her directly?" "No. That is how he works. Everything sounds harmless if you read it out loud. But you know what it means." "Yes." Ethan lowered himself into the chair across from me. "And the marks on your wrist?" I took a breath. "The last night I saw him inside my apartment, he tried to stop me from leaving the room. I left anyway." I did not explain further. Ethan did not ask me to. Silence settled between us. Then I said, "If you help me, you help the way I ask." His eyes held mine. "Tell me your terms." I had been thinking about them since the lobby. "No revenge." His expression did not change. "Agreed." "No sending people after him." "Agreed." "No one follows me without telling me first." A pause. "If there is immediate danger, I may recommend." "Security." "Recommend." "Yes." "Not order." His jaw tightened slightly. "Not order." I exhaled. "Everything gets documented." Messages. Flowers. Cars. Marcus. We use a lawyer. We involve the police where it makes sense. We do this so there is a record he cannot talk his way around. Ethan leaned back. You have thought about this. I have had to. Something dark crossed his face, but his voice remained measured. Then we do it your way. My chest loosened. Just like that. You think restraint is easy for me. Despite everything, I almost smiled. No, it is not. He looked toward the security image again. But this is your life, Grace. Not mine. That sentence stayed with me. We spent the next hour building a plan. Security preserved footage without contacting Ryan. Legal prepared documentation. I forwarded every message I had saved. Ethan arranged a consultation with an attorney who specialized in protective orders, but he asked me before making the call. Every time. It should not have felt extraordinary. Somehow it did. At 9:30, I finally stood to leave. Ethan looked at his phone. Your car is waiting downstairs. My car. A company driver. You approved security transportation 20 minutes ago. I remembered. I had. The fact that he reminded me instead of pretending it had been his decision made something inside me soften. Then his phone chimed again. He read the screen. His expression changed. What? I asked. Ethan turned the phone toward me. Security had reviewed Marcus's access logs. He had opened my executive calendar 12 times in the last month. My home address twice. My sister's emergency contact file once. And that morning, 7 minutes before the white roses arrived, Marcus had searched the building's visitor delivery schedule. I stared at the screen. Ethan's voice was almost quiet enough to disappear. Ryan did not learn your routines by watching from the street. I looked at him. Marcus has been giving them to him. Knowing Marcus was involved changed everything. Until that moment, I had treated Ryan like a shadow from my old life, something I could outrun if I changed enough routines. Now the shadow had access badges, internal calendars, and someone inside Blackwell Group willing to open doors for him. Ethan closed the security report and looked at me. We need to assume anything on your work schedule is compromised. Then we change it. His eyes narrowed slightly. You are not going home alone tonight. Recommend, I reminded him. For the first time all evening, the corner of his mouth moved. I strongly recommend that you do not go home alone tonight. Better. I agreed to the company driver and called my sister before leaving. I did not tell her everything. Just enough to make sure she stayed with a friend for a few nights and stopped posting her location online. Ethan listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked, do you want security near her building? I thought about it. Visible or invisible? Your choice. Invisible. And only until we know whether Ryan has contacted her again. Done. The fact that he asked every time was starting to matter more than I wanted it to. The next morning, I met with the attorney Ethan had recommended. Her name was Laura Bennett, and she spoke plainly, which I appreciated. She explained what documentation mattered, what a protective order could realistically do, and what it could not. I handed over screenshots, call logs, photographs of the flowers, the key tag, and the messages I had saved instead of deleting. For once, the details that had made me feel trapped became evidence. Dates, times, patterns, something measurable. By noon, we had a plan. Ryan would be formally told to stop contacting me. Any further attempt to approach me, my sister, or my workplace would be documented immediately. Blackwell security would preserve footage but would not confront him. Everything stayed inside the rules I had set. Ethan did not complain once. That almost worried me. You are being suspiciously cooperative, I said when I returned to his office. He looked up from his desk. You preferred me difficult? At least difficult is familiar. I can arrange that. I almost laughed. Almost. Then he slid a printed schedule toward me. I moved tomorrow's executive meeting. I looked at the page. Why? Because Marcus accessed the original schedule. Last night. My stomach tightened. You think he is still feeding Ryan information? I think we should find out. I stared at the new schedule. The meeting location had changed from Midtown to a private conference suite near the river. Who knows about this? You, me, legal, security, and Marcus. He sees the old location. I looked at Ethan. You are setting a trap. A controlled test. That sounds like a trap wearing a suit. This time he did smile, barely. No one confronts anyone. We only observe who reacts to the false information. I considered it. And if Ryan appears? We document it. Nothing else. Nothing else. I nodded. All right. The next day passed too normally. That was the worst part. Meetings. calls, coffee, people complaining about deadlines as if someone had not been using my life like a map. At 4:15, security confirmed Marcus had opened the old schedule again. At 5:20, Ryan's sedan appeared 3 blocks from the false meeting location. He stayed there 11 minutes, then left. My hands went cold when Ethan showed me the footage. That proves it, I whispered. It proves Marcus is feeding him information from inside the company. Ethan's voice was calm, but I could see the effort it took. We have enough to suspend Marcus's access immediately. Do it. He called security and legal. No threats. No spectacle. Just revoked credentials, preserved records, and an internal investigation. At 6:30, I finally felt like we had moved forward. Then my phone vibrated. Unknown number. My stomach dropped before I opened it. The message contained no threat, just an address. The exact coffee shop where I was standing with Ethan, even though we had changed locations 30 minutes earlier and told no one outside the room. Underneath it were 6 words. You cannot hide behind him forever. I looked up at Ethan. Marcus lost access an hour ago. His expression changed. I know. I showed him the screen. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he looked through the coffee shop window toward the crowded sidewalk. That means Marcus was not the only leak. For the first time since Marcus was removed, I felt the floor drop out. From under the plan we had built, Ethan took my phone, read the message once, then handed it back without touching anything else. Do not delete it. I know. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. The coffee shop around us kept moving. Milk steamed behind the counter. A woman laughed near the window. Someone dragged a chair across the floor. Ordinary sounds. Safe sounds. Yet Ryan knew exactly where I was. Ethan looked toward the street. We leave through the back. No. His eyes returned to mine. Grace. If we suddenly run, whoever is watching knows they got to me. They already know where you are. Then we stop, giving them the reaction they expect. He studied me for 1 second, then nodded. What do you want to do? That question again. Every time he asked it, I trusted him a little more. Finish the coffee. Leave normally. Then we figure out who else had access to the change. We sat for 9 more minutes. I did not taste a single sip. Outside, the sidewalk filled with commuters heading home. No blue sedan. No familiar face. Nothing obvious. That was worse. Back at Blackwell Tower, security pulled the last 30 minutes of access logs. Marcus was locked out. Legal had not shared the location. The company driver had received the update only after we were already inside the coffee shop. Who changed the reservation? Ethan asked. I looked at the calendar on my screen. I did. Who did you tell? No one. Then how did the address get out? My fingers stopped above the keyboard. The answer was so simple I almost missed it. My calendar syncs to my work phone. Ethan turned toward me. And my work phone backs up through the executive assistant platform. He was already moving toward the security console. Who administers it? I opened the permissions page. 3 names appeared. Mine. Information technology. Executive operations. One name inside executive operations made my stomach twist. Trevor Hall. I had trained him 2 years earlier when he was still an assistant coordinator. Quiet. Helpful. Always volunteering to cover late shifts. I remembered something else. 3 weeks ago, Trevor had asked whether I was still staying near East 86th Street. I had never told him I moved. Ethan saw my face. You know him? I thought I did. Security checked Trevor's access. He had opened my synchronized calendar 14 minutes before the message arrived. My throat tightened. Why would he help Ryan? Ethan's expression hardened. Let us ask the facts first. By 8 o'clock, legal had interviewed Trevor with human resources present. The answer was uglier because it was ordinary. Marcus had paid him for calendar details. Trevor claimed he thought it was corporate intelligence, nothing personal. He did not know Ryan. He did not know about the messages. He had simply sold information because he needed money and believed no one would notice. Ethan revoked his access immediately and placed him on administrative leave pending investigation. No threats. No spectacle. Exactly the rules I had asked for. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt exhausted. 2 people, I whispered. Marcus and Trevor. Ethan stood beside the window. And now neither can reach your information. My phone vibrated before he finished. Unknown number. I looked at him. He did not move closer. I opened it. Come to the pier at 10. Alone. End this tonight. Beneath the message was a photograph of my sister leaving her office earlier that afternoon. My hands went numb. Ethan read my face. What did he send? I showed him. The quiet in the room changed. Grace, he said, you are not going alone. I know. He looked almost surprised. You know? I stared at the photograph. Fear was still there, but something else had finally arrived beside it. Anger. Not the kind that wanted revenge. The kind that wanted an ending. I am done hiding, I said. Ethan waited. We do this legally. We document everything. We involve the police. And if he wants me at that pier, we make sure he thinks I am exactly where he expects. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You want to use yourself as bait. I want to use his certainty against him. That is not the same thing as being safe. No. I looked at him. But this time, I choose the plan. For several seconds, the man who had built his life around control said nothing. Then he nodded. Then we build it. Your way. By 9:30, the plan was simple enough to fit on one page and complicated enough to make my hands cold. The police had the messages, the photograph of my sister, the records from Marcus and Trevor, and the attorney's documentation from the last several days. An officer explained exactly what they could do and exactly what they needed from me. No heroics. No improvising. No one wanted a dramatic confrontation. They wanted evidence Ryan could not explain away. I agreed. Ethan agreed too, though every line in his face said he hated it. You can still change your mind, he told me in the back seat of the SUV as we approached the river. So can you. I am not the one walking onto the pier. You are the one learning not to decide for me. His jaw tightened. That lesson is becoming expensive. You can afford it. That almost made him smile. Almost. The pier was mostly empty at that hour, the river black beneath the lights and the wind cold enough to cut through my coat. I stepped out alone because that was the arrangement. Ethan stayed in the vehicle 2 blocks away. Officers were positioned nearby, out of sight. My phone remained in my pocket, recording exactly as the attorney had instructed. I walked toward the railing and waited. 10 minutes. Then 12. At 12 minutes past 10, Ryan appeared from the far end of the walkway. No rush. No anger. Just that same measured confidence that had once made me doubt my own memory. You came, he said. You asked me to. I knew you would. I kept my hands at my sides. Why are you doing this? He gave me a tired look. Because you made everything difficult. By leaving. By pretending I was the problem. The old version of me would have explained. Defended. Tried to make him understand. I did none of that. You contacted my sister. I checked on her. You followed me. I worried about you. You paid people for my schedule. His face changed by 1 degree. Enough. You do not know what you are talking about. Marcus and Trevor already told the company what happened. That landed. Ryan looked toward the street. So this is about Blackwell now. No. My voice stayed steady. This is about me. He stepped closer, still several feet away. You think he cares about you? That is not why I am here. Then why are you? I took 1 breath. To tell you clearly, 1 time, with witnesses and records already in place, that you do not contact me again. You do not contact my sister. You do not come to my workplace. You do not send flowers. You do not use other people to find me. His expression hardened. Or what? I looked at him. Or the consequences are no longer private. Silence. For once, he did not have control of the conversation. You brought police, he said. It was not a question. I brought accountability. Behind him, movement appeared at the far end of the pier. 2 officers approached, calm and visible. Ryan looked at me, then at them. You planned this. Yes. The word felt better than fear ever had. The officer spoke to him, confirmed the documented notice, and handled everything without drama. There were no raised voices. No threats. No spectacle. Just procedures, statements, and a clear record that he had come to a meeting after repeated unwanted contact. I stood there until 1 officer told me I could leave. When I turned, Ethan was waiting at the edge of the sidewalk. Alone. His hands were in his coat pockets. He had stayed exactly where I asked. It is over, he asked. Not completely. No. His eyes moved toward the pier. But tonight mattered. By dawn, the legal process had moved faster than I expected. Ryan was formally barred from contacting me while the investigation continued. His access through Marcus and Trevor was gone, and every route he had used to reach me had been closed. He had not vanished from the world. He had vanished from my daily life. That was what I wanted. Ethan stood beside the window in my office as sunrise turned Manhattan pale gold. I could have made him disappear, he said quietly. I looked at him. I know. You would have hated me for it. Eventually, he nodded. You wanted your life back. Yes. And I wanted him gone. His eyes met mine. You were right. I looked down at my wrist. The bruises were almost gone now. Faint shadows. Nothing more. About what? Getting rid of a man is easy. Ethan's voice softened. Getting rid of the fear he leaves behind is harder. I looked at him for a long moment. Then help me with that. He did not ask how. He did not make a promise he could not control. He simply said, tell me where to start. By spring, I stopped checking every parked car twice. That was how healing happened for me. Not all at once. Not with one dramatic morning when fear simply disappeared. It happened in smaller ways. I stopped changing my route home every day. I started answering unknown numbers without feeling my stomach tighten. I moved back into my own apartment after security upgrades were finished, and for the first time in months, I slept through the night without leaving my shoes beside the bed. Ryan was still dealing with the legal consequences of what he had done, but he no longer had access to my life. Marcus and Trevor were gone from Blackwell Group. The company tightened its privacy systems, and Ethan made sure every change went through legal review instead of becoming another excuse for control. He kept his promise too. He never sent security without telling me. He never asked to see my phone. He never treated my fear like something he owned. That mattered more than I expected. One warm Thursday afternoon, I walked into Ethan's office carrying a stack of contracts and wearing a short-sleeved blue blouse. I did not realize the significance until I set the folders on his desk. His eyes moved briefly to my wrist. The bruises were gone. Completely. No purple. No yellow. No shadows. He looked away immediately. That small act nearly made me smile. The Boston meeting moved to 3, I said. Legal approved the revised terms, and your dinner reservation is at 7:30. Ethan leaned back in his chair. You forgot something. I checked my notes. No, I did not. You usually tell me my schedule is impossible. I assumed you already knew. I appreciate consistency. You appreciate obedience. His eyebrow lifted. Those are different things. You are learning. Apparently, everyone enjoys reminding me. I smiled and turned toward the door. Grace. I stopped. Do you want to ride home tonight? Months earlier, that question would have made me defensive. I would have heard surveillance inside it. Control. An assumption that I could not take care of myself. Now I heard exactly what he said. A question. Yes. He studied me. Because you need one? I looked back at him. Because I want one. Something softened in his face. 7:15. I have one more report. Naturally. That evening, we left Blackwell Tower through the main entrance. I did not scan the sidewalk first. I did not check the reflections in the glass. The city moved around us in its usual impatient rhythm. Horns. Conversations. Taxi doors closing. Nothing special. Ethan's black SUV waited at the curb. His driver opened the rear door, but Ethan paused before getting in. You know, he said, the first time I saw your wrist, I thought the problem was simple. You usually do. I thought someone had hurt you, and my job was to make sure he could not do it again. I looked at him. That would have been easier for you. Much easier. And wrong. Yes. The admission came without hesitation. We stood there for a moment beneath the evening light. You taught me something, he said. Danger is not always the thing standing in front of someone. His gaze held mine. Sometimes it is the belief they no longer have choices. My throat tightened. And you gave mine back. Ethan shook his head. No, you took them back. I just learned not to stand in the way. That was the difference. Months ago, I had been terrified of being watched. Now, standing beside the most powerful man I had ever known, I understood that being protected did not have to mean being possessed. It could mean someone noticing when you were afraid and still letting you decide what happened next. I got into the car because I wanted to. Ethan sat beside me because I invited him to. As the city passed beyond the windows, I looked down at my uncovered wrist and realized the marks had disappeared long before the fear finally did. The real victory was not that the man who caused them was gone. It was that he no longer decided how I lived.